Have you ever imagined what your 30-year-old life would be like? When I was in my 20s, I thought that when I reach my 30s, I will have a stable job, a stable social circle, and a stable life. The reality is, as I turned 30 years old this year, I hit some milestones, but I don't really have a job. Not much of a social life right now because I recently moved to a new country and I'm experiencing a gigantic identity crisis at the moment. But this is adult life. It's full of uncertainties and it's all about how you can navigate these changes. Hi everyone, welcome back. This is Yahua. It's been a while. I thought we should catch up for a bit in this life update video as my life has been through some major changes. The first change is that I have completed my PhD degree, which also means that I am not a student anymore. It's been forever, I know. So at the time that I received the email from my uni, I didn't even have any excitement at all. Just to give you a brief timeline, I submitted my PhD thesis in February this year and then received examiner's report in August, and I resubmitted my thesis again in September and got the completion notice in October, which is now I'm filming this video. In case you're not familiar with the PhD thesis exam system in Australia, it typically involves peer review by two international experts outside of your institution. These experts will give you their comments and an outcome for your thesis, either a pass with minor revision, a major revision, or a fail. So I received a pass and a pass with minor revision, which I was grateful for because it's basically like having a dialogue with the experts whom I look up to all these years via my thesis writing. Although it's just my supervisors and these two experts who have read my thesis, it made me feel like all of my hard work was being seen. But yeah, I have done with my PhD. It doesn't really feel real because I haven't received my doctoral title yet, but it will arrive soon when I attend the graduation ceremony in Melbourne. So the second change of my life is that I move again. I'm now filming this video in my little apartment in Los Angeles, California in the United States. I'm actually in the south of LA, in the South Bay area, where you can get the same type of sunset like in the movie La La Land. I visited California last year as a tourist, but living here as a local resident feels very different. Maybe because I'm in LA, there are heaps of supermarket options around me, like Trader Joe's, Whole Foods, Costco, Ralph's, Amazon Fresh, Walmart. The list can go on and on. So every time I make my shopping list, I have to be very specific. Like if I want frozen meals, I will go to Trader Joe's, and if I want to hoard items in bulk, then I will go to Costco. It's not like in Australia where if you go grocery shopping, it's either Coles or Woolworths, sometimes Aldi or other local markets. Australia doesn't really have that many different supermarket chains like in the US. As I live in Australia for 8 years, it's not too hard for me to adapt here since the US is also an English-speaking country, and I'm glad that I can also find lots of Asian cuisine in LA. But there's still lots of stuff that I'm trying to get used to. For example, Americans have their own set of measurements that you wouldn't use anywhere else in the world, except Liberia and Myanmar. Like they will use Fahrenheit instead of Celsius degrees. So I don't really know how hot the weather is or how I should set up my oven. Hey Siri, convert 400 Fahrenheit into degrees. Americans also use pounds instead of grams, miles instead of kilometers, and feet instead of meters. So this weird system is really messing up my brain on a daily basis. There are also other things that are different from those in Australia and in China, and we can definitely talk more about that in another video. But now, let's move on to another huge change in my life. I got married. It's probably a shock to a lot of you as I barely talk about my relationship in my channels. Maybe at some point I mentioned that I have a boyfriend. Until this point, me and my partner are married and living together in a new country. I actually got married last year in Melbourne, a few months before I submitted my PhD thesis. It was indeed a hectic period of time, so I didn't really find a chance to bring this up in my videos. It's also because my husband is a very private person, so I want to respect his privacy and keep him censored here. Marriage is not really like a box that I have to take before I turn 30, but then things somehow just turn out in that way. I was in a stable relationship with my partner for a few years, and we're both very independent and we're comfortable with our relationship. So back in those days, I felt like whether to get married or not, it's not a big deal as it wouldn't change too much between us. So the turning point was last year. He planned to go to the US for better opportunities, which I have always known ever since I met him. And I was at that point that I was about to finish my degree in Australia and my student visa will eventually expire. So we have to sit down and talk about what we wanted to do in the future, whether we want to stay together somewhere or we are gonna be in a long distance relationship. So we laid out different options for his visa and my visa and evaluate the pros and cons. And eventually, getting married was the best option among all the possibilities that we laid out. At least it helped us to stay together in the same place. So we booked the earliest date that we could do for the marriage registry in Melbourne. And then I told my parents I'm gonna get married. Even at that time, my parents hadn't even seen my partner in person. They only chat to each other via phone call, video chat. It's, I would say against Chinese traditions because usually in China, if a couple is gonna get married, they would let their families from both sides to see each other before they can even get married. But yeah, I plan to make another video on the day that I get married. Drop your questions below in the comments if you have anything you want to ask. The last thing I want to touch on in this video is the identity crisis that I mentioned at the start. Basically, a set of questions that I often ask myself but I have no answer to, such as what do I want to do in my life? How do I fit in the society? Who do I want to be? And who am I? I admit that I'm privileged to complete a PhD degree in the West and move across the world to establish a new life, but I don't really know what I'm doing at the moment. In the past few years, my identity has been bound with Australia, Melbourne, and my university. Now, I'm no longer living in Melbourne, not longer a student under this prestigious name of the University of Melbourne. How can I find a spot that I can fit in? And how would I find my values? I don't have answer to any of these questions yet, but I hope that after a year, I would know at least what I'm doing. With that being said, uncertainties also mean opportunities. My plan for now is to keep exploring, whether it's career directions or creative ideas. I actually have a lot in mind, but the longer I hesitate, the louder the fear hits me. So maybe the only way forward is just to get started and see how it goes. Life doesn't always go as planned, but it keeps surprising us in the best ways. If you are also in a season of change or uncertainty, I hope we can keep exploring together, one step at a time. Alright, I think I will end the video here. Hope you enjoyed this chatty video and I will see you in the next one.